Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome all my colleagues and participants from the Asia Pac or across the globe. My name is Hemant Pandey, and I'm here, the moderator for the session today for change management strategies for team leaders. Firstly, I would like to thank you and acknowledge and welcome all the participants and colleagues who have joined our webinar today from different countries like Japan, Singapore, Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, and of course India and Sri Lanka. Hope I have not missed any of the other countries. Please pardon me for that. And till the participants are joining, people are waiting in the waiting room. My colleagues and the team at the back-end level will be keep on adding them. But keeping in mind that we have time limitations, so I would like to begin this session. Let me quickly set up the rules of engagement before we start. One is the mutual respect for each and every participant. I would request everyone to put their microphone on mute, maintain confidentiality as well. We'll try to make this more engaging webinar and more of a experiential learning, where we'll encourage everyone to participate, chat, and we'll also be creating breakout rooms for the participants. So, what's the title all about? Change management. In a post-COVID world, we are dealing with changes in the expectations and the demands of our employees, customers, clients. We are also witnessing changes in the working patterns like new work from home and use of technology, digitalization. In this process, our team members, colleagues, employees may see breakdowns, fatigue, and frustration. This will also lead to degradation of current skills if they are not nurtured and given the right flick. Luckily, disruption is also a great opportunity for reflection, recouping our energy, revising our strengths, and analyzing our internal weakness, and above all, learning new skills and bringing a change in our outlook. This is American Management Association's total professional model. The topic of change management strategies for team leaders covered in the relationship management domain as one of the strong curriculums of American Management Association. Relationship management, which leads and influences others to achieve common objectives with vision, mission, communication, and interpersonal skills, influences a range of internal and external stakeholders, including peers, bosses, direct reports, groups, teams, and even entire organizations in the pursuit of the shared goals. This program will help to recruit the team leaders to his objective, nurture innate skills, build bridges of collaborations while objectively working on adding efficiency and meaning to team members' lives to prepare for the new normal. I would also like to welcome our facilitator, Mr. Mayur Suvarna from India. Mayur is an international sales and leadership and sales consultant and comes with over minimum of 17 years of experience in the training and the coaching industry. He is a postgraduate in human resources and is professionally certified from national and international forums on organizational behaviors. Designed and delivered programs on international seminars, global workshops, and online courses in India and Southeast Asia for corporate bodies, educational institutions, and industry associations, including the CII, IES, and the World Bank. He comes with a rich experience of having trained over 10,000 individuals through more than 1,000 plus training interventions for more than 300 organizations across. He specializes in leadership training, emotional intelligence, first-time managers, employee engagement, team collaboration, change management, and also an executive coach for the senior leadership development. So, Mayur, we welcome you to run this change management webinar Welcome from all the participants as well as American Management Association, Integral, as well as Trainocate India and Trainocate Holdings. Welcome back. Well, welcome Mayur, Suvarna. Over
Thank
to
you,
you.
Hemant.
Okay.
Thank you, Hemant. I hope, thank you so much, Hemant, for those kind words. Welcome all to this program called Change Management Strategies for Team Leaders, right? Okay, so, it's wonderful, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in your part of the world, right? So, where are you? Well, I am based out of Mumbai. So what you can do is write your name and also the location that you are in on the chat box, right? Right, I've just done now. So we can just get familiar with using the chat and familiar with each other as well. So please take a moment to write down your names and your locations on the chat box. So we'll just get familiarized with everyone. Welcome, Raquel. I hope I'm pronouncing your name from Philippines. Thank you for answering that. Excellent. Thank you so much. We've got a lot of people now filling in that chat. Thank you guys for doing that. A lot of people. Great, great. Excellent, excellent. We've got people from India as well, Indonesia, Philippines. Yes, great, great. We'll give just another 10-15 seconds for people to fill in their chats and welcome everyone for this wonderful program. Yeah. Great. So as the chat start filling in, a quick look at some of the tools that we're going to be using. So besides the chat, we are also going to be using the annotation and breakout room options as well. So if you're unfamiliar with the Zoom tools, all you have to do is go right on top of your screen. It will drag drop a annotation bar that will open up a range of options for you, including options for texting, drawing, selecting, and stamping your reactions on the whiteboard as we come up over there. Just mind you that if you're using a tab or a mobile phone, you'll not be able to use the texting function. In that case, we will urge you to write it on the chat box. That's why the familiarity with the chatting option. And in addition to that, we have a breakout room, which fortunately all of us can access it. We're going to simulate a real life environment by entering into a chat box and making some discussion points with our group mates as well. And if you keep your video on, you have another option, which is giving a reaction on the bar, and it could range from a thumbs up to a clap or a smiley if you want to, right? So as and when we ask you for a reaction, or if you want to on your own, you can give those. Great, thank you very much. All right, so also keep a notebook and pen ready, because that's a wonderful tool. No matter how digital we might become, it's important to make your personal notes. Great. If you're accessing also from a mobile and tab, the disadvantage is that if I would share something on the chat box, like a PDF or a Word doc, you may not be able to use or quickly access it, but it's possible on the laptop. Okay, so making notes as well. That is to introduce to you the AMA's Total Professional Model. We're going to be speaking about a whole range of things. AMA speaks about business acumen, analytical intelligence, and very importantly, relationship management. Today's program falls under the relationship management program, as Hemant quite rightly mentioned. Great. Okay, our objectives for the program is to define change management and its importance to project and organizational execution. We're going to look at exploring some of the risks and especially in the change that we and an organization face, and learn practical strategies to mitigate some of these change risks. We have, of course, a very limited time, so we may not explore the whole change management portfolio, which comprises of a subset of information, quite a comprehensive one. It's a 2-day event or a 3-day event also, but a 45-minute glimpse of what we can achieve, right? Okay, so let's begin by answering this question. What is change management, and how did it come about? Well, change management came out in the 1990s as part of the a practice for consulting when organizations saw new changes because of economic policies, uh, technological changes, and provided with a lot of new inputs from the world across, especially globalization. And this made it make sure that the chaos ensued because of the various changes that people went through was causing a lot of harm than benefit because of change. And therefore, in the 90s, a structured approach to transition from the current state to the future state was created. And it also speaks about various tools and techniques under the change management portfolio and integrates with project management and organizational development. So it's a whole range of tools and processes. And as a result of which, organizations from Amazon to a Google to Sony and a Toshiba and all of them were able to achieve their organizational success. Change is the only constant. Right. Okay. So, how many people remember this one? So you can this particular image. You can give us a yes on the chat, or you can give us a thumbs up on the reaction and tell us that you know of this company, right? So, how many people are aware of this company? Of course, a lot of people from our generation are aware of them, most of it. But if you're yes, I'm getting a lot of yeses on the chat box. Chris, Christine, Angelita, thank you, guys. Kodak was one of the leading film and camera digital, not digital, but actually a camera equipment company that made record profits in its heyday. And they were poised to become the market leaders up until the 1990s. Let's have a quick look at what happened from the 90s until the 2012s. Right? Okay. There you go. Right? At the peak of its height, it traded at 92.87 and dropped to omega 36 cents in under a decade. Why did this happen? Your guess is good as mine, right? So why did that happen? Okay, can you mention that on the chat? What happened that made the stock prices fall? And what happened to Kodak Company after that? Exactly, Mia. Thank you so much. Smartphones, new technology, trends. They suffered from a mentality of perfect products and conventional strategies. They believed that their products were best and the strategies worked in the past. And in fact, it was a pet research and development project that they had. And they said, that's cute, but don't tell anyone about it. In 2012, they had to see the bankruptcy court. And we know what happened after that. The same thing got repeated with another company. I'm sure everyone aware of this company, right? Let's have a look at the market share of Nokia around the 2007 year. 46% of it was looked at by Nokia. And guess in under 6 years what happened? Right? They got reduced to just over 4%. Yeah, so that is over 3%. Again, the same thing, right? Change is but the constant, and therefore we're seeing this happen over and over again, right? But what's interesting is this particular image, right? And if you see the expansive change from the 1700s to the 2020s, this is the economic activity that pursued after the steam engines were developed. What's your observation from this image? You can mention that on the chat. What's your observation from this image? That's the economic activity. I'll keep that image for a minute. Yeah, thank you, Mia. A rapid change in technology, increase in economic activity. But what the important point is, we've reached a tipping point. We've reached a situation where after the 2000s, with the AI and the internet and the computers, things are happening at a much more rapid pace than it was in the past 10, 15, or even 100 years, of course. And this is what is more scary. And the pandemic has made things even more, accelerated in all, right? So we've seen that with the pandemic. Now, I'm sure everyone is aware of this particular image where we see organizations encouraging work from home, and that's also causing an increase in productivity. America has a $4.5 billion profit coming in because of the productivity increase from work from home. And also now with the decline in productivity, the pandemic, we're seeing a hybrid version of it. What does this all mean for leaders of today's organization? People whom you're managing and you're working remotely, senior leaders who are looking at an entire organization. How is this impacting you? How is this impacting you and your role? I'm going to keep that question in mind and just have a look at this video, and then we'll answer that question, right? And on top of it, we have artificial intelligence and automation to boot, right? Okay, let's have a quick look at this video. Perhaps this also adds to why it's important to change.
We see digital impacting companies in three big ways. The first is with digital customer, where digital disrupts customer interaction and customer channels in the way that companies deal with their customers.
67% of consumers in China believe companies' primary motive for innovation is simply to drive profit. Companies have to overcome this skepticism. Consumers want reassurance that innovation is going to benefit them or society.
Previously, it took months, even years, for customer behavior and therefore their expectations to change. Nowadays, these changes can happen overnight.
Streaming music on Spotify and getting what we want on Netflix, we are now expecting our physical world experiences to have the same level of immediacy and variety.
Customer expectations for the first time ever cross industry boundaries. We call this liquid expectations. Uber has basically trained us to expect a seamless experience when we travel. Nowadays, people are not willing to wait anymore multiple days or even weeks to get an appointment with their doctors. If they do not get that seamless experience that they've seen in other industries, they will quite happily change their physician as well.
Customers just want to get things done. They're looking for more efficient, more seamless ways to live their lives.
A growing number of physical world transactions are far more likely to occur if the transaction can in some way be initiated on a mobile device.
The big issue on every business's mind right now is digital. Every business in every industry needs to find their own pathway to get through it. And the challenge that a lot of companies have is how do they deal with that gap between the current business and the new business.
Develop a mobilization capacity. It's actually about getting stuff from the bottom up and using that energy to fuel your model.
Put the consumer at the center, to empower the consumer in terms of how their data is used and valued.
It's about stepping back further and understanding what the deeper needs of your customers are and looking at innovative ways to solve those challenges as opposed to just doing the incremental things your existing customers want you to do.
I guess that answers a lot of questions about the need for change. All right, so I'm going to ask you now to use the annotate bar, if you can, to write down why is change management critical for you as leaders, considering what we've just spoken about so far. So we'll have a couple of minutes to use your annotate bar right from up the screen and write on the whiteboard. If you don't have access to the annotate bar, you can access the chat box and tell us why is change management critical for you as leaders. So now that we've seen why change management is so much critical, we'll ask you to write using the annotate bar and on the chat box as well. Please write down why is change management. So use your text option, blue or black, as some of our friends are doing, and write down on the whiteboard. You could also write down on the chat as well. Go ahead. Thank you very much, Martina and Hemant. Change to be relevant. Customer preferences are changing. Faster, quicker, more. That's right. Okay. You can use the whiteboard and use the chat box as well for using the laptops as well. Critical for organization and business success. Thank you very much. Yes. I think the space might just get a little challenging to fill in, but we'll see how much we can fit that in. I guess we've got a space problem with the size of this particular. So what we'll do is urge the others to use the chat boxes right now. Okay, so we've got client behaviors is changing rapidly and they're looking for something seamless to stay competitive. Yes. And for keeping a track for all changes and their effect in the organization levels, thrive successfully in a constantly evolving environment. Thank you, Christopher. Yes. Transition with new tech can be difficult and change management will help with the same. Martina, thank you for sharing that. We also have nothing stays the same. Flor Delise. Thank you, Flor Delise. And great. Absolutely. I think a lot of good thoughts coming in from what we've just seen from the video and have discussed as well. And very importantly, it is that the customers, the world is demanding of this particular change. So keeping a track of all changes and the effects of the organization. Thank you very much. I'm going to be now clearing all the drawings on the whiteboard and moving ahead. Yeah. So all your points are absolutely valid to adapt and exist in the business as mentioned by Goldbean. Thank you, guys. Yes. Right. And that's exactly what we are saying too, to remain competitive, to compete globally, comply to regulations, and technology that remains supported. It's estimated that there is a difference between change and successful change, and it's what great leaders do. They're able to bring in successful change because only change will or may result in losses as well, no matter how relevant those changes are. And therefore, to achieve the goals and the ROIs of that particular intended change is what team leaders must need to work on. Okay, so therefore, we need a process for bringing in the change management. So how does it all work through? It begins by understanding the drivers and the impact of that particular change. We follow it by understanding the barriers to accepting those changes. Remember, when changes have been brought in, people usually deny that change or become angry and resist. And therefore, the barriers of acceptance have to be arrived at. So followed by communication, managing the resistance, if any, getting buy-in from the relevant stakeholders, and of course, evaluating impact. What we can do is, what we'll invite you to do is use the annotate bar and do a stamp on one of these elements that you think as team leaders is the most challenging aspect of the change management process. So use the annotate bar and mention, or not mention, but you can do a stamping using a tick mark or a star mark for the, okay, Chris is already there. Managing resistance, yes, that's huge. Christine says, understanding the drivers and its impact. Thank you. Right. Okay. If you're not able to annotate, you can mention that on the chat. The one element that you think is the most challenging for team leaders right now. So we're getting responses there. Wendy, Corona. Thank you, Chloe, Judith, and Christopher. Resistance, Raquel, for communicating, adapting. Yeah, thank you. Right, okay. There you go. Lovely. It's looking all colorful, isn't it? Yeah, with the hearts and the stars and the tick mark and all of that. That's wonderful, wonderful. Great. Okay. All right. Okay, we're going to stop over there. Thank you very much for participating in that one. We see a lot of concentration on the managing resistance bit as well. Absolutely. So what we're going to do is today spend a very important some time on the managing resistance part because it's a whole process. We'll look into that. Okay, great. I'm going to clear the drawing right now. Right. Thank you guys for sharing that. Okay. William Bridges says this, that it's not the change that people are fearful about, it's a transition that is more challenging for them. It's the process that they have to go through which is much more challenging. And nothing so undermines organizational change as the failure to think about the losses that people face during the change. Those losses could be existing relationships, skill sets. It could mean the processes that they have been followed. It could mean relationships, very importantly, which are affected. And those losses can be difficult to recoup because they've spent time, months and years bringing those skills together in place, relationships in place. And therefore, it's important that the leaders understand the impact of and the depth of those losses. So, therefore, William Bridges suggests the change and transition framework. What he did was to plot this on a time and importance scale, and he figured out that if the time is less and importance is more, people quickly move over. But at the same time, they go through three zones. There is the ending and losing and let go of the former self. They go into a neutral zone where they kind of get a little comfortable, and then new beginning. So what they say is with the less time available and if the criticality is high, they are forced to move and they make that jump quickly in a quick time. But this process is taxing. But if over a period of time the importance is less and the time given is more, then the transition is easier, but that would mean compromising on the time, say. So it depends on the criticality and the time, but it's important to recognize the ending, the neutral, and the beginning. And that means emotions have an important part to play, which means risk, right? Merriam-Webster speaks about risk as a possibility of loss or injury and a hazard, right? And when we are making that transition from the old to the new, there is a risk. Now, because there is a risk, there is, as we said, in the initial stages, it's denial, shock, resistance. It's the second phase where they're getting into the neutral zone when there is confusion, and in the third stage, and it's in the third stage when they make new beginnings, where acceptance, hopefulness, and commitment come to play. As team leaders, please tell us, which is the most important area for us team leaders or leaders to be in during the transition that they're making from the neutral zone, from the old zone to new beginnings? What's the time when leaders are needed the maximum? So please put a stamp on the whiteboard. Cheryl says all of them. Yes, yes, very important. Yes, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, guys. A lot of it in the area of the phase ending and the neutral zone as well. Yes, that is true. But we need to time ourselves as to not get absorbed into either of these phases. So we need to have an antidote at each of those phases. So during the phase one, it requires a lot of empathy. During the neutral zone, we need a lot of direction, which means and a lot of hopefulness to bring that confusion of clarity during the neutral zone. And during the beginning, the leaders need to have a lot of plans in workplace. So planning and also being able to have the skills for communication is very critical. So we're required at all places, but very importantly, we need to know not to get overwhelmed with either of these phases. Thank you very much, guys. Right. Okay. So so think about a time when you were doing something new or experiencing something new. What are the feelings that you went through? I remember when I went for this. It's not my picture, but when I went for water rafting, I was extremely scared and excited both at the same time. So, what were the feelings that you went through when you were doing something new? Okay, on the chat. On the chat, you can mention the feeling: fear, worry, anxiety. Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. We all do that. Right. Uncomfortable. Yeah. Scared, excited. So it's a mixture of fear. So what we're saying is when we're doing something new or experiencing something new, ambiguity. Yes, Martina. Yeah. Excited. Yes. Yes. Anxious. Now, if you notice the most common words that are coming about, or the common feelings that's coming out, is related to fear. So it's all about fear and how fear predominates our experiences when we are doing something new. So what are some of the risks that you are foreseeing? Some of the risks that you are foreseeing in your workplace. Can anyone tell me what some of the risks that you foresee in happening due to the changes currently happening? Resistance. Okay, we're seeing that some of the risks is resistance from the team members to accept downsizing. Yes, restructuring, employee turnover, and productivity going down for various reasons. It could be digitalization, skill set. Yes, miscommunication is a big risk. The impact on salaries, morale going down. Yeah, that's a big risk. Yes. Although we're coming in from out of the pandemic, but we're certainly facing a morale low down. Errors may increase, as I just mentioned, leaders changing, behavior change, and therefore ability to manage those behaviors. A huge burnout, yes, that's very true, and which is very important. Yeah, these are some of the risks that we're facing. Great. So, not great. I'm just saying, we just move ahead, right? But thank you for transparently and honestly sharing some of these real risks that today's team leaders are facing. So when we look at risks, they're possibly broken down or into three common people risks. And as leaders, we should be aware of that. The first one is known as change resistance, which you've all marked at the beginning of the change management process. Change resistance. The second is change readiness, your ability to be accepting and having the tools and the skill sets to be able to manage change. And the third is change saturation, when change have impacted one aspect of their life but has a domino effect on a whole range of things. For example, when we're using the digital tools and work from home, this is also going to change the way we interact at home. It's also going to change on the interaction with our colleagues, no timeout, more work because we're looking at, using up our communication time or commute time at work. So there's going to be more work at times. Well, fatigue, yes, performances are affected. Cheryl, thank you. So these are the three risks that we're facing. In today's program, we're going to be looking at change resistance. The risks are related to anxiety and fear, as you just mentioned, in relation to change. But it is normal. But what it does, it highlights personal threats. I'm going to also speak about, or to share with you, what readiness to change means. The risk is that people are not aware of the change and the processes, and therefore the culture is not being in. And the third is the saturation, where the volume is too much for people to manage. So these are the three broad risks. We're going to look at the change resistance in particular for this session today. Okay. So so as you said, change resistance is the anxiety or fear that, and the most common fears are the one that people have to do with the perceived loss of control over their environment. And people hate change not because they hate or hate change. The transitioning is challenging. The personal threats are huge, and that's the reason why resistance becomes higher. Yeah. So and here's where a model from David Roth's comes into play. It's called the David Roth's SCARF model of threat perception and reward. What David Roth says is that each of those threats can be broken down into these 5 elements. It begins with the status threat or status. People are scared about whether they'll be able to maintain their position vis-a-vis the others. When there's a different way of approaching things. Now you can't monitor your team members as closely as you might have been able to do in a real life environment, but in a virtual environment, we can expect that we can hope that people are doing their work. So your work observation gets affected. Certainty, and with no clear signs of the pandemic easing out, or we are not able to predict the future for ourselves, and that's the certainty aspect of it. The autonomy is really in where you're not able to do things on your own, but have a lot of dependency on, say, the technology tool, or for that matter, the process tool, or the ability to do things on your own. Fortunately, the work from homes have allowed a little bit of more autonomy to people. Relatedness is the relationship impact that people are threatened with, and the fairness is am I being overloaded with certain changes, or is the distribution equal? So the SCARF model is what helps us to break down the fear of the change system. What we're going to do is we're going to be breaking ourselves into a breakout room. I am also going to, if you're accessing the chat, give you access to, okay, so give me a moment while I access a content for you, which you have to read up, and there you go. There's a SCARF model handout which has been sent on your chat box, which you can download. Alternatively, you can take a screenshot of what's up on the screen for you about the SCARF model. Once you've gone through it, you have about 2-3 minutes to go through this screen and the content of it, basically. And what you can do is this. We're going to break you into groups, and each of those groups you can discuss what is the threat perception from the elements given over there. So if you have, say, status, what is a threat perception that people have when it comes to status? So, and therefore, as leaders, what can be a reward maximization in place of the threat posed for those elements? For example, autonomy. One of the threats under autonomy would be that people feel that I'm going to be continuously monitored by the work from home process through the digital equipment. But the reward maximization is to give them a freer hand, which is almost the opposite of the perception. So if we delegate work to them and give timelines and responsibilities rather than micromanaging them, a reward maximization takes place. Similarly, for certainty, if we can create goals for a short term, we'll be able to do that. So we will use 10 minutes to get into the breakout room. Our friend Jeanette is going to break you out into 10 groups of 10, sorry, and you can enter those groups and discuss the SCARF model after 10 minutes and come back with your understanding of either of these elements, the threat or the reward, threat and reward for either of the elements. Okay, 10 minutes, please start. Okay, hope you had a good discussion. Welcome everyone. So great to see everyone having a great discussion on the staff model. Now that you're in, let's ask people what they discussed. Now, if you can speak about status as a reference point, you know, what would be some of the threats that people perceive, and you can mention that on the chat as to what did you discuss about this, the threat that people have about status. Anyone?
Well, Mayur, it could be Kavita here. It could be a fear of discomfort or probably fear of failure, which is a big threat for me, and so I'm not ready for change.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you very much for sharing that. The fear of failure is one of the status changes, Kavita. Thank you. Right. Anyone else on the mic that you can share what would be the status fear or threat they might have, and therefore the rewards accordingly? You can share it on the mic, and or you can share it on the chat.
Hi Mayur, this is Mia, and for Group 5, we explore the situation of changing job titles as the situation or as the case for our group.
Right.
And this is quite sensitive in nature because sometimes job title changes may lead to some perceptions on whether it is an actual responsibility change or whether it is, for some, they might think it's a downgrade or something to that effect.
Right.
So for the status, to mitigate this threat, we found it important to have a current state versus future state overview, which will be communicated to the employees who will be affected. In that way, all threats or perceptions of said changes can be mitigated early on. And the reward, of course, will be very benefits driven. So for example, communications that it will be aligned to other units in the organization or fitting the baselines of other industries or leading companies and so on.
Correct. Beautiful. A very important thought there. Yes, the ability to communicate in foresight is a great tool to be able to help people understand the changes that they are going to have in place. So thank you very much for that. Okay, great. Let's hear something about certainty. We see that the high level of resistance, therefore having a vision could help. Thank you very much, Martina, for sharing that. Any thoughts on certainty? How can we bring in a sense of future proof certainty for people so that they are able to mitigate those risks about certainty?
Give a clear communication to the staff, and like in our group, say telling them the purpose and what is in it for them, and also why do they need to do this, what do they need to do, and how they're gonna do it.
Exactly. So having the why beforehand is very important for them. Thank you very much. Can we think about autonomy and how can we allay the fears about autonomy about people? This is something that a lot of people go through. Anyone? So let me answer that. One of the things that can help is delegate goals and give them tools and skill sets so that they are not micromanaged. That's very important in a change so that everyone finds its own way of finding a solution to that. One more thing is about relationship. How can relationship be managed, and does my relationship get impacted? Any thoughts on that? Chris is saying, as leaders, we can give employees latitude to make decisions. Exactly. Thank you very much, Chris, on that. Yes. What about relatedness?
I guess it is the ability to feel a sense of safety with each other. And I guess the way to do that is to have empathy with each other and maybe collaborate while working. So these things could help.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. May I have your name again? Who said that? Sorry, my video is not on. Okay, great. So
my name is Martina. That's Martina.
Martina, thank you very much, Martina. And in the personal setting, Chris says it's important to interact in ways that will surface points of similarity, strengthen social connections, and increase a sense of relatedness. Beautiful thought, Chris. Thank you for that. Great.
One more thing that
Yeah, Martina.
This is Chung Kunun. One more thing that I need to add from the relatedness. Actually, the thing that you can build more people or to get more close together, except the beyond the work, is like when you get to see people like virtually, maybe you ask something about like outside the work, so people just think that they're being cared, and it's just like getting bonding and know each other like outside the work.
Excellent. Yeah, so a lunch catch up is a great thing to do, even if you're doing it virtually. We can do that and talk about topics which are not related to work. Great. And so if we were to look at the strategies of managing threats, what we say is, providing people with their own best time or goals. For certainty, we believe that you could have them clear objectives. Under autonomy, the threat is of being micromanaged or allowing latitude, as Chris mentioned. Relatedness is setting up, mentoring, and coaching people. And when it comes to fairness, bringing more transparency and doing a lot of work which is not necessarily related to the KRA of our people. So these are some of the strategies that you can work with, and that's given on the chat item that we've shared with you. Great. So just a repeat of that. So what we say is, listen for their resistance, observe people's body language, support an open line of communication, and very importantly, engage with the leaders when it comes to change. And very importantly, be a part of a pilot change, acting as a change champion, and it could be a small group of people who could be from various levels, who could be your brand change ambassadors, whom you can become, who can become ambassadors or mentor buddies. Yeah. So, in summary, what we say is change risk of resistance is coming out of fear, and it's normal as to expect it. One of the strategies that we could adopt is to look and listen, communicate with them, and very importantly, reinforce, reward, recognize, and give them latitude, no matter how big or small, as they go through the change. Great. We've come to almost the close of today's session. It's been a wonderful to be participating in this learning community. We do have 10 minutes for a Q&A round, and once that, we'll be closing the event. So happy to take any questions that you might have about today's program.
Guys, please feel free for any queries, any questions. Mayur is here. I would be glad to address the same.
And we can take some questions on the chat boxes as well. And Hemant is going to help us collate them. And if you're not able to get to you with the answer, of course, we can get back to you at a later stage as well. Great. So, okay. So, have you got any so far? Yeah, so we've shared, Martina, some reading material on for you on the chat box, which is about the SCARF model. you can access those as well. And for further program, of course, we will have more training materials available to you.
There is a question from Chris Dennison. In your years of experience supporting different organizations, what have been your significant takeaways, highlights, etc.?
Thank you, Chris. It's a very broad question, and one thing that we see that the human experience is the same across the world, whether we're in Philippines or whether we're in India or we're in the US or the Europe as well. People go through the same kind of emotions, which we just saw in the SCARF model. So the fear is predominant, and people and the interpersonal relationship is the same. People really appreciate the work that they do, and when the appreciation is given, the reward mechanisms automatically creates a oxytocin levels go high, and people reciprocate accordingly as well. So a human emotion is the same. So those rules and philosophies apply universally. Thank you, Chris, for the question. Okay, so I think we've got a couple of minutes. We've got now 3 to 4 minutes left for Q&A, if any. If not, then you can share with us what has been your insight from the training program, either on the chat or you can come up on the mic and share that with us. So we'll be happy to do that. Questions and, of course, insights for yourself from this program.
I just get the insight from this session that the change has been happened really rapidly, and it's either do or die.
Yes.
Or then you die, and also like the role of leadership, you are have like the facilitator that brings your subordinate to overcome this fear and change in uncertainty. And this will not be the first or like the last time. It will be continue, and I believe there will be more of change in other forms. So we need to be prepared. Yeah.
Excellent summary of the points of Anuj. It's not the first time, and we're going to see more rapid waves of changes happening because of technology, and it's really that leaders need to be faster and more agile. Great, thank you. Lovely. Got a couple of minutes for insights and takeaways and questions, and we'd love to hear your feedback on the chat box. There is a link that has been shared. We also have this QR code which you can access and scan and give your feedback to. We'd be happy to hear from you. Great. Raquel, thank you for the appreciation. Okay, I think we're coming to a close of this session. It's been a wonderful time working and interacting with all of you across the world. Stay safe, stay healthy, take care of your family, and enjoy your work, and be the change you want to see in others. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you once again, everyone, and I would really appreciate all the participants for joining and taking your time out to attend this webinar. I hope you enjoyed, and of course, along with enjoyment, you also had a learning too on the subject in change management, and basically the status quo remains that how to embrace change. If you're keen to explore more on our curriculums and programs, which will help you to increase your productivity and bring that transformational change in your knowledge, skills, and behavior, and overall create a business impact for your organization, please do write us on the given email ID. That is, I will just write it in the chat box. solutions@facilitator.com.